Since the North Korea-U.S. summit in Hanoi in February, there has been little progress in denuclearization talks. The South Korean government is pushing ahead with its plans for humanitarian assistance for Pyeongyang. However, it's doing little help in getting the talks back on track. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump continues to stress that he trusts North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Today, we go in-depth into the calculations key players have in mind with an expert. But first, here's Arirang's Choi with the latest on Seoul's aid plans.
The South Korean government will finalize its consultations with UN agencies this week about its pledge to donate $8 million for humanitarian assistance to North Korea. Seoul decided earlier this month to take the donation to the World Food Program and UNICEF for projects on nutritional support and maternal and child health. Seoul's unification ministry made this announcement on Monday.
I reiterate that the government is concerned about the dire living conditions in North Korea and is seeking to provide such humanitarian assistance to the North in a fraternal move.
But North Korea continues to express discontent, calling the humanitarian assistance a secondary issue. Over the last few days, Pyongyang's propaganda outlets have released reports saying Seoul needs to live up to the promises made during their joint declarations. Pyongyang abruptly canceled planned meetings with South Korean civic groups last week, citing similar reasons. It said South Korean media reports are touching upon less important issues, when what the North wants is to discuss making a breakthrough on the current impasse in inter-Korean relations. Experts say Pyongyang wants Seoul to be more proactive in resuming economic cooperation projects with the North. Meanwhile, the Unification Ministry is still collecting opinions from the public and is reviewing options on when and how to deliver the aid. Choi Seong, Arirang News.
And for further discussion on this issue, Dr. Bong Young-shik from the Yonsei Institute for North Korean Studies joins me in the studio today. Welcome to the program.
Very pleased to be here.
So firstly, I would like to start by asking, South Korea is seeking to provide humanitarian assistance to North Korea, but the response from Pyongyang hasn't been so welcoming. Now, a propaganda outlet like we just heard said that Seoul should stop talking about humanitarian assistance, calling it non-core and secondary, and rather that Seoul should be focused on other issues like fundamental issues laid out in their joint statements. You don't see this as a mere refusal to the aid, though, do you?
Well, I don't think it is a total refusal to the provision of humanitarian assistance by South Korea, but the message is that if you're going to provide humanitarian assistance, then you have to do it right. And there's a bigger fish to fry, which is the lifting of economic sanctions. South Korean government just begun the procedure to provide $8 million worth of humanitarian assistance to North Korea. But supply of that type of humanitarian assistance will be too small to actually eradicate the chronic and large-scale food crisis inside North Korea, probably in the shortage of the about 1 million tons of grains to feed the entire population this year. And the provision of such humanitarian assistance is subject to monitoring by the assistance groups. So in the spirit of the Juche ideology, self-reliance, admitting the internal problems will be a very difficult thing to swallow for Kim Jong-un leadership, especially considering the result of the Hanoi summit meeting with the United States that failed to produce any groundbreaking result as advertised to the entire population. And by subjecting the supply of humanitarian assistance to domestic discussions and deliberations, that North Korean government must have been really disappointed by the Moon Jae-in government that it hurts the pride of North Korean leadership. So basically, North Korean government is going to, put additional pressure on the Moon Jae-in government that if you are going to provide the food aid, then just to do it without having such a big advertisement. And there's a more important issue, which is for South Korean government to join hands with North Korean government to put pressure on Washington to accept the core demand made by Chairman Kim Jong-un in the Hanoi summit meeting in February, which is for the United States to lift at least 6 United Nations Security Council resolutions on North Korea since 2016. Because if Kaesong Industrial Complex and Mountain Kungang tour programs are resumed, then North Korea will benefit from the annual revenue of approximately 150 million US dollars. That's big money. There's no question about it. But if North Korea is going to be permitted to export its coal and the workers abroad, then North Korean leadership will even gain far bigger economic revenues. So North Korean leadership's eyes are not really on humanitarian assistance or resumption of Kaesong Industrial Complex or Mountain Kungang tour program, but how to lift United Security Council resolutions so that North Korea's dire situation will be resolved.
So it's something that North Korea has wanted since the Hanoi summit, but obviously the U.S. has refused unless it gives up its nuclear programs. Then at this point, it kind of overlaps with what you just said, but at this point, what does North Korea want the South Korean government to do? What action can South Korean government take?
Be on our side, away from the United States in terms of sanction relief. If you want us to make progress on denuclearization, then you have to give us incentives that are big enough and strong enough. And there is no substitute for lifting the United Nations Security Council resolutions made since 2016. But it is very difficult for South Korea to make that choice because United States and South Korea as security partners share the same goal, which is final and fully verified denuclearization of North Korea. So unless North Korea take the first move that if there will be sanction reliefs of some kind, then North Korea will, with no question, take concrete and verifiable steps toward the denuclearization. Only then South Korea may be able to persuade Washington about at least partial sanction reliefs. But that kind of incentives has not been announced by Kim Jong-un regime of North Korea yet.
So while we wait, U.S. President Donald Trump tweeted that he's not actually disturbed by the latest missile launches by North Korea and expressed that he still has confidence in North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Why do you think Trump continues to stress his confidence? Do you think he's still trying to hold on to the momentum for dialogue?
Yes, you just provided the answer. He wants to maintain the momentum for dialogue with Kim Jong-un regime of North Korea. And you must have seen his a media interview alongside with Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe. Then, well, as long as we maintain the momentum of dialogue and negotiation with Pyongyang, then we can prevent North Korea from resuming major-scale missile tests, long-range ballistic missile tests. And we are happy as long as the status quo continues. At the same time, he wants to be the central figure of all these dynamics. Borrowing the former U.S. President George W. Bush's own word, then President Trump wants to be able to say to the world and the American citizens that I'm a decider. I make the decision, not John Bolton, not Mike Pompeo. I'm the decider. So he wants to maintain this impression that the road to sustainable peace on the Korean Peninsula and final and fully verified denuclearization of North Korea goes through me, the President of the United States.
So he likes to be at the center of it, but not everybody is seeing the glass half full like Trump, but actually half empty. National Security Advisor John Bolton actually said over the weekend that there was no doubt the missile test violated the UN Security Council resolutions. But Trump said in the same tweet that North Korea had fired off small weapons, which disturbed some of his people, but not himself. Do you think Trump is downplaying Bolton's remarks?
He's downplaying his National Security Advisor's remark, but that's not a bad thing for U.S. diplomacy toward nuclear North Korea for two reasons. One, it highlights who is the boss. Trump is the boss. He is the ultimate decider, not John Bolton. So it gives more reasons for Pyongyang to hang on to President Trump for any breakthrough result. So it enhanced the leverage of the presence of the United States in upcoming negotiation with North Korea. North Koreans have every reason to pay due attention to every slight move or small words made by US President Donald Trump. And taking different stances on North Korea's recent provocations by the members of the US government actually increases the strategic ambiguity or strategic flexibility on the side of the United States, which help keep North Korean leadership guessing about the true intentions or next steps that are not likely to be taken by Washington. So all in all, these are not signs of confusion or lack of strategy, but rather very flexible and relaxed attitude of the Trump administration in dealing with North Korea after the Hanoi summit meeting in February.
So it could be a strategic move then. Now, something to note is that Trump posted the tweet while on a state visit to Tokyo. Now, Japan has been pretty much on the sidelines when it comes to denuclearization talks. And now, given that it came just prior to a sit-down with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, do you think we should see this as significant?
It's a significant, not only on the front of a denuclearization effort by United States and Japan, but U.S. and Japan has a set of bilateral issues to be negotiated and settled, like the trade imbalance. And we all remember that Japan has increased its value or stock in overall scheme of the previous Obama administration's rebalancing strategy to the Asia-Pacific region. Now it's in the coffin, but we used to take into account the future of economic partnership under the Trans-Pacific Economic Partnership, TPP. But now TPP is gone, so Abe administration needs to write new plans to work with the United States for common goals, which is not only confined to denuclearization of North Korea. So it gives incentives to Abe administration to embrace the Trump administration very closely.
Now, staying in Japan, Trump and Abe again showed off their close ties playing golf together and watching sumo. Now, according to Japan's Sankei Shimbun, the two leaders discussed North Korea, and in particular, Trump stated that inter-Korean talks had also stalled. Now, it went on to say that they shared their concerns. What would these concerns be if confirmed to be true, and who do you think they're referring to?
Well, they're referring to both Korean leaderships. Well, the talk has been stalled because of the stalled Hanoi summit meeting between DPRK and the United States. And the United States would have liked to see a new breakthrough in its negotiation with the Kim Jong-un regime of North Korea. But it seems like Kim Jong-un leadership is also in the process of absorbing the unexpected outcomes of a Hanoi summit meeting and still pretty much in the middle of devising new strategy. I think that is a reason behind the announcement by Chairman Kim Jong-un that we would wait until the end of this year, or demanding the United States that United States has to change its mind and comes up with a different ways of calculations. It seems like a message to Washington, but at the same time, it is self-imposed roadmap or timeline for Pyongyang to recollect itself in dealing with the United States after Hanoi summit meeting. So it is very frustrating to South Korean government that North Korean government has not been so responsive to a set of initiatives and proposals made by the Moon Jae-in government, including proposal for having the fourth inter-Korean summit meeting without any preconditions.
So at their joint conference, a fair chunk of the speech was focused on North Korea. U.S. President Donald Trump said that North Korean leader should transform his impoverished country by giving up its nuclear program, saying that it has much more to achieve. Now, he's been highlighting the North Korea's economic potential all along. Do you think these remarks will be able to, in a way, resume talks that have stalled, because North Korea has called for a new calculation on Washington's part if it does want to resume these dialogue?
I think so. North Korean leadership would find this announcement by President Trump acceptable or at least amenable, but North Korean leadership remains dissatisfied by the detailed steps that need to be taken for realizing this vision introduced by President Trump. And North Koreans still believe that the first steps to realize this goal, transferring North Korea as a new economic powerhouse, needs to begin with relieving existing economic sanctions.
Okay, so sanctions will just still be a long way to go from here. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And that does it for this edition of News in Depth. Join us again at the same time tomorrow. Thank you for watching and goodbye.